Revealed. How one Sunday dinner transformed my life after my daughter-in-law's shocking words. Jim anxiously adjusted his cap, a badge of pride from his days as a mechanic, as the mouth-watering scent of his wife Linda's pot roast wafted through their modest Ohio home. It was a typical Sunday evening, the family gathering around the table, laughter hanging in the air like the delicious aroma. Jim leaned back in his chair, a warm smile on his face, as he envisioned a night filled with stories of hard work, the very backbone of who he was. He thrived on these moments, the tight-knit bonds woven within his family, where love was unconditional and shared experiences became cherished memories. However, the comfort of the moment was fleeting. As everyone sat down to eat, Jim's daughter-in-law, Emily, took a deep breath and steered the conversation toward the changing landscape of work ethic and merit in today's world. What began as a lighthearted discussion took a sharp turn as she introduced her progressive views about societal responsibility and equal opportunity. Jim's heart raced, indignation prickling at his senses as Emily's opinions clashed violently with his own. Not everyone can make it just because they work hard, Jim, she argued, her voice steady but her eyes dancing with fire. It's not just about grit. It's about the systems in place that keep people down. Jim clenched his fists beneath the table, his mind racing. Hard work was the foundation of his existence. He had fought tooth and nail to provide for his family, to build a life worth living. And now, Emily's words cut deep, a challenge to everything he held dear. He felt himself growing heated, words tumbling out before he could rein them in. You think life is just handed out fairly? You've got to earn it. It's about staying the course. The words left his mouth, but they hardly landed well. Laughter faded, and the table grew hushed, eyes shifting between them like butterflies caught in a storm. The warm glow of being together was a dim memory, replaced by the tension hanging in the air. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In a moment of frustration, Jim stormed out, his heart pounding in his chest. He wandered the quiet streets of their suburb, the night air a stark contrast to the warmth of the dinner table. Deep sorrow mingled with anger as he grappled with his daughter-in-law's words. Fear of losing his family nagged at him, while memories of sacrifices long made felt like stones in his chest. Could his life's work somehow be deemed inadequate? As he made his way back, Jim knew he had to confront this divide, yet dread loomed over him like the shadows cast by flickering street lamps. Upon returning, he found the family gathering still, the tension palpable. Emotion welled up within him as he dared to challenge Emily once more. What followed was a raw exchange, a dance of pain and vulnerability neither had expected. They spoke not just of beliefs, but of fears, of pride intertwined with love, illuminating the human experience they all shared. Tears fell as Jim admitted his fears of being obsolete in a rapidly changing world. The lines drawn began to blur. Walls that seemed insurmountable began to show cracks. What would they all learn from this moment? As the evening drew closer, the question hung heavy. Would love, understanding, and the courage to be vulnerable build a bridge, or were they too far gone? Jim stood at the doorway, the wooden frame as solid as the heart pounding in his chest. It felt heavy in his ears, drowning out the soft murmurs of his family inside. As he hesitated, steeling himself for what lay ahead, he was struck by the echo of laughter that had once filled the room. It was almost like a distant melody now, overshadowed by the discord brewing between him and Emily. With a deep breath, he walked back to the dining room, where the mood was marked by uncertainty. The table was still set, the remnants of Linda's beloved pot roast occupying plates like a subtle reminder of the warmth they had all shared seconds before. Jim's resolve crumbled slightly at the sight. He had always believed these meals were sacred, a time for cherished moments, and yet it felt achingly different now. "I'm sorry," he said, the words spilling out before he could curb them. He didn't want his family to suffer for a simple disagreement. Emily glanced up at him, uncertainty flickering across her face. Her expression softened just a little, as if she too recognized the rift between them, even still holding onto the remnants of their earlier argument. Jim, she started, but he was interrupted by the earnestness flooding his own thoughts. No, let me go first, he said, cutting across her. I want to understand. I don't want us to keep dancing around issues like this. It's tearing at me, Emily. I think you're missing where I'm coming from. He gestured slightly, searching for the words that had evaded him earlier. My pride, my story, it's all wrapped up in hard work. I know not everyone has the same chances. But for me, grit and determination got me there. I believe in hard work too, Jim. I just don't think it's that simple anymore, she replied, urgency creeping into her tone. People go through things that you can't always see. They might be fighting battles you can't even imagine. Her voice cracked on the last few words, a glimpse of the vulnerability he had just bared. It was then Jim realized they were fighting different battles, both wanting the same thing, a better world for their families. He could feel the cracks widening, and yet somehow, they seemed to overlap. I guess I'm just scared, he admitted finally, his voice lowering into a whisper. Scared I won't be enough. Scared that what I've built could fall apart, because the rules changed while I wasn't looking. He noticed the sadness in Emily's eyes, a mirror of his own. You're not alone in that fear, she said gently. Change is hard for everyone. But it doesn't mean you're obsolete. It means we can learn together. Jim shifted in his seat, the burden of his fears gradually lifting as the dialogue between them began to forge a new connection. They weren't enemies, they were family. And love, after all, had to be big enough to hold their differences. As emotions settled like dust after a storm, Jim looked around the table at the faces of those he loved. Linda's warm smile met his eyes, while his son, Mark, watched attentively. For the first time that evening, he felt the weight of their hope wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. But just as the warmth of understanding began to settle in, an unexpected sound drew their attention. The doorbell rang urgent and unexpected. An uninvited guest. Jim felt the familiar jaws of anxiety snagging at his heart once again. What now? Could this turn the tide once more? The doorbell rang again, louder this time, echoing through the tension-filled air. Jim's heart thumped. He glanced at Emily, who looked equally caught off guard. The laughter and warmth from just moments ago felt so fragile now. What do we do? She whispered, her eyes wide as he stood from the table, the chair scraping against the floor, breaking the silence. I'll get it, he said, moving toward the front door. With each step, his anxiety built like a knot in his stomach. Who could it be? A neighbor? A friend needing help? Or something more complicated? Jim paused at the door, his hand hovering over the knob. Memories of past gatherings flooded his mind, friends sharing stories, families celebrating, and love echoing through their home. He could almost hear Linda's laughter, see her smile. He turned the knob and pulled the door open. Standing on the porch was a woman with familiar features, but an unfamiliar expression. It was Rachel, their estranged daughter, who had left home years ago. A crumpled letter clutched in her hands, and her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Jim's heart sank. The last time he had seen her, words of disappointment had filled the air between them, sealing a chasm that had been growing for years. Dad, Rachel said, her voice trembling. I need to talk to you, to all of you. The breath left Jim's lungs. Rachel, we weren't expecting, I know, she interjected, stepping forward. But I have to say this. I can't wait any longer. Behind her, a gust of wind rustled the leaves as if nature itself was bracing for her words. Jim gestured for her to come inside, glancing back at the dining room where Emily and Mark sat frozen, their eyes wide. He stepped aside, letting her enter as Rachel walked toward the dining room. Jim could feel the air thickening with past hurts. Linda's casserole sat on the table, untouched but simmering with the warmth of family love, and now it was about to confront the past. Mom's here too, Mark blurted out, naive excitement pooling in his voice. Rachel's eyes flickered with pain at the mention of Linda, snatching Jim's attention back. Is she? Rachel looked at him, her voice faltering. The truth hung heavy between them. Jim felt the words of acknowledgement bubble up, but how could he explain the loss that loomed over their family like a storm cloud? It's been hard, Jim finally managed to say, wrapping his arms around himself as if to shield against the ghost of the past. But we've been trying to hold things together. We thought it was best to. I don't want to dissect the past. I need to share why I came back now. She took a breath, a deep one that seemed to gather her courage. I found out something about Mom, about the letter she wrote. Gasps filled the room, eyes darting between Jim and Rachel. 1,000 questions flooded his mind. What could possibly link his daughter back to the fabric of their family's pain? What do you mean? Emily pressed, her tone imbued with invitation, but with the edge of apprehension. Rachel hesitated, biting her lip, and Jim felt the collective intake of breath. This moment had the potential to reshape everything. The very foundation of their lives could shake and tremble. I can't just keep running, she whispered, glancing at each family member. I need my family back, but first, you need to know the truth. Jim felt the weight crashing down, swirling emotions ready to spill. The future felt fragile, precarious. What would they learn? What secrets would unravel before them? And as one door opened, another shadowed window slammed shut. What would the truths reveal about their family's journey together? Rachel's eyes glimmered with raw emotion as she stood before them, the letter still clenched tightly in her hand. The tension twisted in the air, thick and unyielding. Jim could see that she was ready to unravel something monumental, yet a part of him wanted to step back, to shield his family from whatever storm was brewing. Rachel, he started, but she raised a hand, urging silence. Just let me say this, she insisted, her voice steadying slightly. I know I haven't been here. I know I left. But what I found out, it changes everything. Mark shifted in his seat, his innocent curiosity palpable. What about Mom's letter? What did you find? Rachel's throat tightened, her eyes welling with tears. I never understood why things fell apart. Why you all seemed to pull away from each other after I left. Emily leaned forward, her hand resting on the table. We were all hurting, Rachel. I know, Rachel said. But it goes beyond that. Mom's letter, it wasn't just an apology. There was more. The gravity of her words hung suspended. Jim's heart raced. What do you mean more? What are you talking about? Rachel took a deep breath, breaking eye contact with Jim. She had secrets, things she never told anyone. I found out she had tried to protect us from something terrible, something I think she might have felt responsible for. The table was silent. Each person processed her revelation, the implications sinking in like stones dropped into still water. Jim's memories of Linda, vibrant and full of life, were vivid yet shadowed by the weight of what he might now learn. The laughter and warmth they once shared seemed long forgotten, swept away by the currents of unspoken pain. What kind of secrets? Mark finally asked, his youthful innocence cutting through the tension. Rachel looked at her brother, the weight of familial bonds tightening again. I can't explain everything without telling you about our family's past, about her trauma. She paused, catching her breath. When I found out, I realized I needed to come back, to find you all. I want to fix this. Jim's head spun. This wasn't just about Rachel or Linda anymore. It was about the whole family. The echoes of their past seemed louder now, demanding recognition. Rachel, what if this changes how we see everything? She nodded, her eyes pleading. I understand that. But I think it's important to face it together. To acknowledge it, instead of hiding from it. Emily glanced sidelong at Jim. What do you think we should do? Face it together, he replied, channeling an unexpected surge of determination. We owe that much to Linda, to ourselves. Rachel's expression softened, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. Thank you. And if it's as traumatic as you say, we'll need to prepare for the impact, Emily added, her voice trembling slightly. Are we ready for whatever might come out? The question hung in the air, heavy yet illuminating. Jim paused, contemplating their family's journey. Each word, each revelation could either bind them together or tear them apart. As Rachel began to share stories about her findings, her voice cracking, as she spoke, Jim felt the walls around their family shaking, shifting from isolation to connection. But with every fragment of truth Rachel unveiled, a looming question lingered in Jim's mind. What if the secrets buried by Linda altered everything they thought they knew about their family? As each word fell like a stone into the depths of their shared history, the reality dawned on him. The next chapter of their life could be the hardest yet. What awaited them hidden beneath the layers of time and silence? Rachel took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts as if preparing to dive into the deep end. Her fingers still clutched the crumpled letter, as though it were a lifebuoy in dark waters. Jim's eyes traced her face, searching for a sign that everything would be okay. He could feel the weight of expectation resting heavily on his shoulders, as though he were holding the world's secrets. Mom was never the same after that incident, Rachel began, her voice barely above a whisper. I always thought it was about Dad leaving, but she drew a shaky breath. There was something else, something I never understood. What incident? Mark asked, eyes wide, leaning in as if the words could bridge the gap of confusion. It happened before I was born, Rachel continued, locking eyes with her siblings, one by one. A family tragedy that reshaped everything. Mom lost her sister. It was traumatic. I think she buried it deep, convinced it was a burden she had to bear alone. Silence gripped the room. The air throbbed with unshared memories, unspoken fears, and tender threads of hope that just might weave them back together. Jim clenched the table's edge, feeling the sting of Rachel's revelation. Linda had never spoke of a sister. It was as if a piece of their family puzzle vanished into thin air, unraveling Jim's understanding of the woman he loved. Rachel, how do you know this? Emily finally asked, breaking the spell. I found Mom's old journals, Rachel said, tugging a paper from her back pocket. There are pages that talk about the guilt she lived with. The pain of that loss wrapped around her heart until her true self was lost. She thought she could save us from it, but all she did was build walls. What about me? Mark almost shouted, concern etched all over his face. Was I supposed to just live like this? Not knowing? Rachel leaned toward him, her voice a soft anchor amidst the rising tide of emotions. That's why I'm here. I can't undo what has happened, but we can face it together. Together, we can understand what she went through. So maybe we can heal. Not just as individuals, but as a family. Jim felt a mix of anger and despair bubbling up inside him. But what if knowing does more harm than good? What if the answers plunge us deeper into pain? Or maybe they could lift us out of it, Emily interjected, her voice a whisper of hope. Rachel might be right. Ignoring it hasn't worked. We've been drifting apart for too long. Mark looked at Rachel, searching for reassurance. You really think there's a chance for us? I believe there's always a chance, Mark, she replied, her voice trembling. But we have to be brave enough to let the truth in, no matter how hard it is. Jim wrestled with the swell of emotions churning within him. Could they truly forge new bonds from old scars? Did he want to dig up the past only to lay bare their pain further? Rachel gestured to the letter, shifting the focus back. This letter isn't just a doorway to the past. It's a chance to rediscover who we are, to honor Mom's struggles, to understand her pain, and ultimately to release it. As she spoke, Jim found himself battling against the tide of fear. The thought of opening wounds felt insurmountable, yet the thought of remaining stagnant filled him with dread. His heart raced, vibrating with the rhythm of possibility. What do we do now? He asked, barely above a murmur, feeling the boundaries of hope stretching outwards. Let us read the letter, Rachel said softly, her resolve strengthening. Let us let Mom's words guide us. With the promise of revelation hanging in the air, they sat together, bracing for whatever might come next. As Rachel unfolded the paper, Jim felt his breath hitch in his throat. Whatever lay ahead could change everything they believed about their family forever. But just then, as secrets began to unfold, a sudden knock echoed from the door, sending a chill through them all. Who could it be at this crucial moment? What interruption threatened to unravel their fragile resolve? Rachel paused, the crinkled letter trembling in her hand. The knock echoed again, stronger this time, a jarring intrusion into their fragile moment of clarity. Jim exchanged glances with Emily and Mark, each face mirroring confusion and a sliver of dread. Should I get the door? Mark asked, his voice a mix of uncertainty and curiosity. The warmth in the room felt suddenly colder, as if the space around them had shifted in anticipation. No, Rachel said firmly. Let us just stay here for a moment. Her eyes darted to the letter. We were about to uncover something important. But the knock came once more, insistent, demanding. Jim ran a hand through his hair, his anxiety bubbling over. What if it's someone who might disrupt everything we're about to find out? Or worse, what if it's someone from the past? He shot a worried glance at Rachel. What if it's Mom? Emily whispered, her tone half serious, half joking, in an attempt to break the tension. But no one laughed. Rachel's heart raced, torn between the need to turn back and the drive to move forward. We can't let this interrupt us. But another knock erupted, louder, punctuating their already taut nerves. Whatever lay behind that door could rip them back into their old ways, into the silence and the unspoken. Fine, I'll answer it, Mark said, his voice resolute. He stood up and walked to the door, each step heavy with the weight of uncertainty. As he turned the handle, Jim braced himself, half hoping it would be a friendly face, half dreading it might be a figure from their family's past returning to stake an emotional claim. The door swung open, creaking as if announcing a long-forgotten presence. First, all Jim saw was the silhouette framed in the doorway, casting a long shadow on the floor. The figure stepped into the light, a woman, her features sharp and familiar. It was Linda's sister, the one Rachel had just spoken about, the ghost of their past made real. "Hello, everyone," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper, heavy with memories from years gone by. There was a look of raw vulnerability in her eyes, as if she had battled her own demons. "I'm here to talk about your mother, and about the truth she couldn't share." The air thickened with surprise and disbelief. Rachel's mouth fell open, her heart pounding in her chest. Was this an answer to her unasked questions? Could this woman provide the key to understanding their mother's pain? "Rachel, I know you've been looking for answers," the woman continued, her voice quavering with emotion. "And I think I can help." Jim felt a mix of fear and hope swirling inside him. Their past was knocking at their door, demanding to be acknowledged, and everything they believed about family was about to shift. "Do we let her in?" he thought, eyes darting from Mark to Rachel, gauging their response. With a deep breath, Rachel stepped forward. "Yes," she said, surprise giving way to conviction. "We need to know all of it." As the sisters stepped fully into the room, the letter slipped from Rachel's fingers, fluttering to the floor like a forgotten promise. The truth was at hand, yet in the silence that followed, something felt incomplete, a space waiting to be filled with the weight of their intertwined histories. What secrets had been buried for so long? And how would this revelation alter the future they had hoped to build together? As they all faced the woman before them, the clock ticked away precious moments, each second amplifying the potential for healing or heartbreak. What stories were about to unfold, and could they handle the truths that might change everything again? The woman stepped fully into the room, the door swinging shut behind her with a soft thud. Rachel could hardly breathe. She felt the weight of years of questions pressing down on her, tormenting her patience as the unexpected presence sent ripples of anxiety through the group. "Please, take a seat," Mark offered, his voice low and cautious. The atmosphere pulsated with anticipation, the moments stretching like taffy. They settled on the couch, the sister Nancy perched on the edge, cradling the ache of family secrets she bore alone for too long. Rachel's mind raced. "Before we dive into this, can you tell us what you know?" Her words burst forth, tinged with both urgency and desperation. She needed to understand how this stranger could hold answers that had eluded her for so long. Nancy took a shaky breath, her gaze flicking between the faces that mirrored her own anguish and curiosity. "Your mother, Linda, she carried so much with her, things left unspoken. When I received the call about her passing, it broke something in me. We had a complicated history." Jim leaned forward, his brow knitting together. "What do you mean complicated? She never spoke of you of any of this." Nancy's voice dipped lower, as if revealing a confession that had simmered too long in silence. "Because she was frightened. She feared her past would taint the new life she had built for you all." The air in the room shifted, filling with a blend of tension and almost palpable grief over lost opportunities for connection. Rachel felt a flicker of anger mixing with her sadness. "But she could have confided in us, we could have shared that burden. She wanted to protect you," Nancy replied softly. "But that protection came with a cost." Emily, arms crossed tightly, broke her silence, her voice sharp. "What kind of protection are we talking about? What did she hide?" Slowly, Nancy unfolded a narrative heavy with loss. "There were family secrets, things I thought were buried forever. Linda's struggles with depression, a younger sister who vanished without a trace, and an unfulfilled promise she made to herself to shield you all from pain." The sisters' stories were intertwined like threads in a frayed fabric, and with each revelation, Rachel felt pieces of her mother return, pieces she had only imagined or read in letters. Their mother's past was coming alive in stark colors now. each hue revealing the struggles and heartaches she had tried to keep at bay. Tears filled Rachel's eyes. So, it was all wrapped in shame. She didn't want us to carry her burdens or create our own. But I feel like we're just standing on the edge of a cliff. This is so much to take in. Nancy's voice softened. I understand, but you deserve to know the truth. It's time to break the cycle of silence. Time felt suspended as hope flickered alongside uncertainty. Would confronting these truths build them up or tear them apart? Rachel exchanged glances with Jim and Mark, their faces reflecting shared determination mixed with trepidation. What did you want to say, Nancy? Jim finally urged, his brow furrowed, ready to facilitate the chaos of emotions building within each of them. A silence fell like a blanket. Nancy's breath hitched. Linda wanted to tell you everything before it was too late. She wanted to reach out, to feel that connection again. As those words hung in the air, Rachel's heart thundered, echoing the urgency of a truth almost lost to time. She felt the tremor of revelation washing over her, compelling her to take the next step. Then let us talk about it all. Let us unravel the secrets together. But even as she spoke, doubt crept in. What if knowing the truth opened wounds too deep to heal? What if piecing together the past only plunged them deeper into despair? Nancy nodded, her expression resolute, yet her eyes shimmered with the hint of tears. You may not be ready, but I believe this will help you heal. Are you sure you want to dive in? Standing on the precipice of revelation, Rachel felt one last pull of fear and anticipation swirl within her. Could they really face what lay ahead? The sound of her own heartbeat pounded in her ears, drowning out the lingering question. Were they prepared to embrace the murky history of their own family? And if so, what would waiting on the other side reveal? Rachel took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling as she gathered the courage that felt just out of reach. The tension crackled in the air like static, each heartbeat a reminder of the walls they'd built, now poised to crumble under the weight of hidden truths. Just start from the beginning, she urged, her voice steady yet barely masking the quiver of vulnerability. She wanted to know every single detail. The foundation of her own life felt shaky, and this was the only way to solidify it again. Nancy nodded, visibly bracing herself. It started with Linda's childhood. She was always the one trying to keep it together. But it was hard. Our parents had their own struggles. It left some scars. Scars that turned into secrets. Jim shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Scars. Secrets? Nancy, you have to know how cryptic that sounds to us. What are we talking about? The words hung dangerously in the air, and Nancy's eyes glistened as she continued. I didn't want anyone to think badly of our family. When Linda was younger, it seemed like the world was against us. She dealt with bullying. I can't count how many nights we cried together. Eventually, she just stopped talking. Rachel's heart ached for the girl her mother once was. The loneliness, the silence, it made her feel sick. But why didn't she come to us? We could have helped. She tried. Nancy whispered, her voice breaking. But every time she opened up, it felt like her struggles became our burdens. She thought she could protect you from it all, but instead, she only pushed you away. Silence swallowed the room. Each person sat lost in their own spirals of thought. Rachel's mind raced. What could her mother have said? What had been left unspoken? Did she ever talk to you about the sister who vanished? Emily asked, a flicker of apprehension betraying her composed demeanor. At this, Nancy trembled. Molly, that's her name. Molly was Linda's younger sister. She disappeared one night, and it shattered our family. Mom always thought it would be better if we just forgot about her. No questions, no reminders. But it's been suffocating for Linda. Anguish flooded Rachel's mind. What happened? Why would she want to bury her sister's memory? Nancy wiped her tears. Molly was the bright light in our family, and losing her dimmed everything. Linda hated that people looked at her differently because of it. She felt like a failure for not being able to protect her. That guilt grew into something unbearable. Rachel felt her stomach twist at the realization the old wounds had never truly healed. How could she begin to help her family mend when shattered pieces were strewn across both the past and present? Then what happened? She pressed, anxiety electrifying her body. Why didn't she ever reach out for help? Because she thought she had failed everyone, including you, Nancy said softly, meeting each of their eyes like a lifeline. Linda couldn't bear the thought of dragging you down with her demons. It was easier to stay silent. A wave of understanding washed over them, mingled with the bitterness of betrayal. Rachel felt hollow, and yet strangely full of clarity. Their mother had fought her demons alone, believing it was best for them. Yet that decision now lay heavy like a stone in her heart. "What do we do now?" Jim asked, breaking the thick silence, his voice trembling with the weight of their collective pain. Rachel looked around at her family, feeling a flicker of hope emerge from beneath the sorrow. "We face it. All of it," she said, determination hardening her resolve. "We can't let her story die. We owe it to her and to ourselves to bring these secrets into the light." Each of them nodded, a collective agreement rising from the depths of despair. They journeyed into the unknown, hearts pounding with both fear and fire. "Then let us uncover the truth," Nancy said, her voice trembling but unwavering. As she spoke, Rachel felt an unexpected warmth spreading through her. This was a chance to finally connect, to heal together. But right as Rachel's hope began to solidify, she couldn't shake a lingering thought. What other secrets lay hidden, waiting to pierce through the fragile bond they were desperately trying to mend? Rachel felt a knot in her stomach as she glanced at the family photos lining the walls. Each smile felt like a facade. She longed to dig deeper into the secrets that had led them here. "There's so much we don't know," she murmured, the weight of their shared history settling heavily on her shoulders. Emily took a breath and spoke up again, her voice breaking the silence like a soft hammer on glass. "We have to start somewhere. If we're really going to face these truths, we can't avoid the past." She met Nancy's gaze, an unspoken understanding lingering between them that in that moment, Rachel was struck by the sense of urgency pushing them forward. "What about the night Molly disappeared?" Rachel asked, hopeful they could shed light on the one secret they hadn't unraveled yet. "What happened then?" Nancy looked to the floor, her fingers twisting together. "That night feels like a heavy blanket I've carried ever since." "Then share it," Jim said, more gently than before. "We need to hear it." With a deep, shaking breath, Nancy began. "We were playing in the yard. It was summer, and we were supposed to be inside at sundown, but Molly begged for just a few more minutes. She was so full of life, a girl ready to take on the world." Tears glistening in her eyes, Nancy wiped her cheeks. "I let her stay out. I thought she'd be fine like she always was." Rachel could almost see it, the warm hues of childhood, the laughter hanging in the air as the sun dipped low in the sky. But then the laughter faded, and the thought of what happened next darkened those sunny evenings. "Mom called us inside," Nancy continued as her voice trembled. "But Molly, she didn't come. We searched everywhere, thinking she was just hiding, but she wasn't." She paused, her breath hitching. "When we finally called the police, my heart sank deeper than I thought possible. Hours turned into days, and then nothing." Her sobs became heavier. "What do you think happened to her?" Rachel whispered, almost afraid for the answer. "I don't know." Nancy shook her head, the pain evident. "I never wanted to believe she was gone. We all held on to that glimmer of hope, even when everyone else had given up. It felt like the darkness started creeping in then. That's when Linda stopped talking. She felt responsible, trapped by a weight she thought she could prevent." A silence settled once more, heavy and pressing. Rachel could feel the chill in the room, as if the walls themselves were participating in the mourning. The urge to protect her family from the pain began to fade. "What if we tried to find out what really happened?" Emily suggested, a hint of determination igniting in her voice. "We owe Molly that much." They all nodded, a collective spark lighting up the heavy atmosphere. The phone calls, interviews, and digging through old news clippings felt daunting. But this was the first step towards freeing Linda from the hold that night had on her. Bringing the past to light could be hard, Rachel warned, her hands trembling. But maybe, just maybe, uncovering the truth could heal us. Heal her. A weight shifted in the air, hope intertwining with fear. Together, they venture into uncharted territory, with the potential to transform sorrow into strength. As they began plotting their next steps, something else gnawed at Rachel's heart. What if some wounds were too deep to heal? What if, in seeking the truth about Molly, they unearthed even darker secrets about their family? Are we really prepared for what we might find? She finally voiced, threading anxiety with the flicker of resolve flashing in her chest. With a profound silence, they each pondered this uncertain path, knowing they had crossed a threshold from which there might be no return. The emotions swirled like a storm in their small living room, hearts pounding and breaths held as Rachel, Jim, Emily, and Mark faced the weight of their family's secrets. With the shadows of the past looming ever closer, each of them knew that whatever lay ahead would require courage, trust, and an unwavering bond. Rachel looked around the room, her family's faces etched with determination. It was as though a new light flickered within them, a powerful spark igniting the promise of healing. The darkness that had long clouded their family now took on a different hue. It was no longer about the isolation and hurt they had carried, but rather an invitation to reclaim their narrative. "All right," Rachel said finally, her voice strong despite the nerves racing in her chest. "We're in this together. Let us figure out what happened to Molly. We need to understand our past to truly connect." Emily reached for Rachel's hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "We can do this. We owe it to each other and to Mom." Jim nodded, his expression softening as he reflected on the loving memories of Linda intertwined with this new reality. "I think it's time we face the truth, whatever it is. We've kept so many secrets for too long." He took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of Linda's pot roast still lingering in the air. "This will only make us stronger." With their resolve set, they launched into action, planning to visit the local library and search for old newspapers, articles chronicling the disappearance. Each step toward the truth felt monumental, and anticipation hung in the air filled with a sense of urgency and a hope for resolution. Days turned into weeks, and it wasn't without struggle. Every encounter with the past brought pain, but it also unearthed shared stories that made them laugh, reminisce, and ultimately connect. Jim recounted tales of his youth, how working hard had shaped him, while Rachel shared moments of understanding she'd learned through therapy about her mother's battles. They were weaving together a vibrant tapestry from their frayed history. Yet, one night, the phone rang, interrupting the family gathering around the dinner table. It was a detective from their hometown, the kind of call every heart fears yet longs for. With bated breath, they gathered closer, Rachel clutching Jim's arm. The detective briefed them about a recent development. The case had been reopened after new evidence surfaced related to Molly's disappearance. "Rachel, I think this could be it," Emily whispered, the weight of possibility palpable around them. With hearts racing, they agreed to meet the detective the next day. A mix of fear and hope washed over them. What if they found the answers they had long sought? Would it unravel the fragile bonds they had only just begun to strengthen? The following day dawned bright, yet heavy. They met the detective in a conference room filled with cold metal furniture and flickering lights. As the detective laid out the evidence, a series of old witness accounts and cryptic notes that pointed to a different narrative of that fateful night, the air thickened once again. Rachel could feel her heart pounding in rhythm with her thoughts, the weight of possibility both exhilarating and terrifying. The people who last saw Molly mentioned a woman, a stranger who lingered that night, the detective explained, their voice steady. "We believe she may have key details that could change everything we understand about Molly's disappearance." After a tense discussion, they decided to track the woman down. The detective led them through interviews, cold calls, and eventually to a small, weather-beaten house on the outskirts of town. This was it. They were stepping into the past, ready to unveil whatever lay behind those closed doors. Whether it was hope or heartbreak didn't matter. As they approached, Jim reached for Rachel's hand, gripping it tightly like a lifeline. Each knock on the old wood felt like a countdown. The door swung open slowly, revealing an elderly woman with weary eyes that held stories of their own, just waiting to be told. "I've been expecting you," she whispered, her voice cracking. And just like that, the door opened to a myriad of possibilities. The truth was at their fingertips, and as the woman welcomed them inside, Rachel felt that spark of hope surge anew, the knowledge that they could finally process the painful layers of their past and begin to heal. As words began to flow between the new and old family members, it felt monumental. Jim, Emily, and Mark listened intently, filled with anticipation as the pieces of their shared history began to click together. The heaviness in the air lifted slowly, leaving space for understanding and forgiveness. It was this very moment where they revealed they weren't simply a family they had grown up with, but one reborn from the ashes of an old narrative where love, hope, and resilience could take root. 8 weeks rolled into months, their family dynamics changed, blossoming into something more vibrant. They held hands more often, shared meals with laughter, and rekindled bonds that had long been dormant. Finally, during a quiet evening, sitting around the dinner table, Jim glanced around, taking in the warmth surrounding him. The past may be heavy, but it has brought us closer. We're not shying away from it anymore. We're learning. And there's beauty in that. Together, Rachel echoed, smiling as tears of joy filled her eyes. The journey may have been hard, but they were stronger than ever, united as a family, ready to face the future. In that moment, they each understood the profound truth. Families are built on love, courage, and the willingness to confront challenges. And while their past held pain, it was the love in their hearts that would always guide them through. As they finished dinner, laughter erupted once again, echoing through the home, the sound of renewed hope taking flight, and so, embracing their future. Together, they thrived as one. Don't just sit there. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Your like right now will feed the algorithm and keep the spirit of these tales alive. Comment with your reactions and feelings about this journey. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.